So, good morning.
Good morning.
And everybody just close your eyes for a second and think about the first thing that comes to your mind when you hear the word church. Now you can open your eyes now. And for me, it's a small congregation where we get to share our ideas equally and peacefully. And in some of these places, it may seem odd or peculiar, but either way, they are still able to be themselves and relish life, despite doing it in a very peculiar way, many of us may think. So today I'm going to express my top 10 most unique churches from around the world. I'm going to organize this into two categories, the first being 5 interesting based on their architecture, and then 5 that are interesting based on the religion that they're associated with. So without further ado, let's start with the architecture. As for number 1, we have the Cemetery Church of All Saints in Sedlic, Tullahoma, and Czech Republic. And its unique traits are that it's nicknamed the Church of Bones. That very eerie name, you will see why that has that very shortly. And it has the bones of 40,000 to 70,000 people arranged artistically below the cemetery. And it started out as a very simple monastery back in 1142. King Ottokar II of Bohemia sent Sedlic's abbot Henry to a diplomatic mission to Jerusalem. Wait, is that Bohemia? Is this just real life? Is this just fantasy? Wait, no, never mind. Not that This was way before Queen. So, while on his mission to Bohemia, Henry found some dirt from Galatka, otherwise known as the Calvary, where Christ was crucified. So when he got back to Sedlic, he sprinkled that dirt over the monastery. So it now became one of the holiest monasteries in the world at that time. So all of the wealthy wanted to be buried there. And a little while after, in 1318, he was enlarged from 30,000 bubonic plague deaths and deaths from the Hussite Wars. So later on, it became the Church of All Saints, and that was built in the middle of the cemetery after 1400. And then chapel was built below the church because some of those graves were abolished. And it was built by a half-blind Cistercian monk in 1511. It's impressive. And so it was then, in 1703, remodeled by Jan Ležek Santini Echel, I don't know how to pronounce that, who is a popular Czech architect at the time. And then the bones were added in 1870 by František Rint, who is a Czech woodcarver. And so there is the main chapel, and then you go into the cemetery. You can see how the bones are all set up. There's the chandelier. Here's more. And there it kind of looks like a catacomb.
Oh my God.
And you have Christ at the center. And then it is open daily except for Christmas Eve. And then for normal service, the entrance fee is 90 coronas, which is actually only $3.56 here. And then they have 3 separate tours of the ossuary, the cathedral, and the Sedlic area, and those prices range from 200 to 490 coronas, which is only $7.92 to $19.40 for up to 50 people, so it's a school field trip mainly. And as for number 2, we have the Inflatable Church in Sandown, England, and it is 47 feet long and 25 feet wide. Here that is.
Oh, it's a bouncing church. Bounce bar.
And it holds up to 60 people, and it even includes an inflatable organ, candles, pews, and stained glass windows. Probably the softest glass in the world. As shown. And in the 2004 Guinness World Records, it was listed as the world's largest inflatable church. I don't know where the competition would come from. So, it was founded in 1997 by a businessman. It's not the first time money's been used in churches, yay! Michael Gill of Southampton for a nightclub chain. Oh wow, that sounds very holy, doesn't it? And it was used for weddings in 2003 when its Reverend Michael Elfred from the Church of England, and he was a minister in Tadworth there, decided that maybe it should be used for a more congregational purpose. And over 2,000 ceremonies have been conducted. They're mostly weddings, and there have been some famous celebrity weddings, including the wedding of Warwick Davis, who you don't know is a short actor who is Wicket the Ewok in Star Wars, and he's been in a lot of other movies.
Willow.
Yeah. And number 3, we have the Dog Mountain and the Dog Chapel. And what that is, it is basically a chapel for dogs, and that sounds pretty self-explanatory, but let me go on. It is placed on a 150-acre mountaintop in St. Jonesbury, Vermont, and it has a dog park and a memorial chapel. But it's mostly consisted of a dog park, and the chapel's in the back. So it includes stained glass windows with dog art and dogs carved into the pews. And it was founded by Stephen and Gwen Hunnick in 1995, originally as a dog park, and then the dog chapel was opened on Memorial Day weekend of 2000. And as for the service details, the Dog Mountain is always open, even when the dog chapel is not. And the website includes online stores and a donation source. So there is the chapel. It says, "Welcome all creeds, all breeds, and no dogmas allowed." And there's the pews.
Oh, that's beautiful.
And this is the part of the chapel, is a wall of all these memorable moments and notes that people have of their canines that passed away. That's how long the wall is. A very somber moment for some. Makes you realize that even though some people may not think that animals have souls, they're still very delicate in our hearts. And there's the stained glass dog, his friend. That's a great name, friend. And then number 4, I'm just going to call it the Chapel of Reconciliation, and it is in Berlin. And back in 1894, it was just a normal church, but then in 1985 it was destroyed due to the Berlin Wall having to be moved. And then it was reconstructed after German reunification. And that is the destruction. So it was replaced with a building that has completely different architecture. And then here is a little statue of those reconciliating after destruction of the original church. And as for the service details, there are prayer services for victims of the wall from Tuesday to Friday from 12 to 12:15 p.m. I don't know what time that would be here, but if you want to visit and remember that horrific event, you can. You know, it's not always that a church is destroyed, that it's rebuilt in such a fascinating way, I think. And now we're moving on to the 5 most unique churches based on association with a religion. Bum, 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 bum. There's no emotion, there's peace. There's no ignorance, there's knowledge. There's no passion, there's serenity. There's no death, there's the Force. And that is the Jedi motto. So this all started back when people in England and Wales had a religious census. And 390,127 people identified as a Jedi in 2001. I'm assuming jokingly. And that made it the 12th most popular religion in the UK at the time, above Scientology. So since then, there are several congregations of Jediism that have since then popped up from Wales to Chicago. And some followers believe that Jediism is an extension of Taoism, and others worship it as an independent religion. And so a petition has been set up for Australia and New Zealand censuses to consider the group as a legitimate religion option. And as for service details, meetings mostly occur on Skype, Facebook group chats, and public places. So it's not, they don't have an official building. So there's an example of some of their meetings. And there's the Chicago Jedi. So now we have the Prince Philip movement, which is on the Yao Nangan village in Vanuatu, Oceania. It is on a small little island where the villagers, the indigenous villagers, believe that the Duke of Edinburgh is a savior and would visit the island in 2016. And they believe this because they think he's predicted several weather occurrences, such as the Cyclone Pam, and they believe that was an omen of his visit. So this all began with the Queen and the Duke's trip to Vanuatu in 1974. So Chief Jack Navia was one of the canoe paddlers that greeted the royal yacht at Port Violet. And quoting him, "I saw him standing on the deck in his white uniform. I knew that he would be the true Messiah." And there are some of the worshippers of the Duke and their little village. And this turns out to be a cult village where they collect scraps that have been left there from World War II, and they try to set up modernized societies, but it's already kind of on itself. So number 7 is the Church of Realism in France. And this is a little bit like Scientology, but it's a lot more liberal. So this basically interprets every biblical verse as aliens creating humans, and that they will arrive to Jerusalem in 2025. So, for example, they believe Genesis 1:2, and the spirit of Elohim moved across the waters. They believe this refers to the Renaissance flights made by alien scientists and to artificial satellites they placed around Earth to study. Well, that must explain a lot of what Galileo thought. And another example is from Genesis 2:17. "Of every tree in the garden you may eat, but of the tree of good and evil you shall not eat of it. For on the day that you eat of it you shall die." And some people on the aliens' home planet were angry that a new intelligent species was being created. The aliens on Earth had to agree to leave them in a primitive state and deny them access to advanced science. And unfortunately, a renegade group of aliens disagreed and gave humans access to the forbidden knowledge. So this is basically saying that aliens are both God and Satan, and that they are basically atheists. And they also believe that the flood was a barrage of nuclear missiles that caused a tidal wave on Earth, that the Ark was really a spaceship containing a single cell of each living creature. Why would it be so big? And then this group also believes in human cloning. So they believe the Tower of Babel was a metaphor for taking the Jews, who had most scientific knowledge, and scattering them amongst more primitive tribes. So I'm assuming that's supposed to be the Ghettos. Yes, I'm assuming they're partially anti-Semitic. And they are very liberal, as I said, and a lot of them are nudist, and they have expressed sexual freedom, and as I mentioned, they are atheists. So this was founded way back in 1973 by a race car driver by the name of Claude Laurillon after sighting a UFO on a volcano. He's just hiking, and he supposedly saw a UFO. And he wrote in his book, Intelligent Design, Message from the Designers, that aliens told him to return the next day with the Bible because they had to do some explaining to do.
Oh, wow.
So, there was a private business called Clone Ad that was founded by Raylon Brigitte Bozilur, who is a Raylon, in 1997. And they supposedly created the first human clone in 2002, but they've been very vague about that information. There's the company. They're pioneers in human cloning. Are any of you a clone?
Not that we know of. And just my kids.
There's more than one of me in the world.
So as for their service details, they do both, once again, they don't have a main building, but they do both online events and Happiness Academy seminars in France. You guys like B-movies? Well, there's the Church of Ed Wood. It's an online church that quote-unquote posts lessons on total understanding and acceptance regardless of what modern society may say, which is what many of these 3,000 followers of this religion, which was founded in 1996 by Reverend Steve Galindo, believe that his low-budget sci-fi and horror movies were trying to achieve. And there's their logo. I don't know, I think he looks a lot like Tesla. It's electrified.
Tesla.
At number 9, we have the Maradona Church in Argentina. So, this church worships the former Argentinian soccer player Diego Maradona, and who is considered by many to be the best soccer player in the world. It was founded in 1988, sorry. But it didn't have any gatherings until 2001, so it has more than 100,000 followers in 6 countries. So as for their service details, they have a book written called Dios 10, which translates to God, and 10 is Maradona's jersey number. So in Argentina, a shrine was built for him. Show. And now we're on number 10, which is KO Day in Tay, Vietnam. So they believe that Earth is close to hell. Let me clarify. According to their faith, there are 36 levels of heaven and 72 planets with intelligent life. When are we going to reach those? And level 1 is closest to heaven, while level 72 is closest to hell. And each planet is in one of those levels. What level are we on? 68. So this was founded by an army in a Japanese occupation of Indochina in 1943, and the army disbanded in 1955 to 1956 due to DM opposition. So that may be some of their inspiration for their religion. They might have been retaliating against them. And their website includes teachings and prayers, and they have held events from 2010 to 2016. And there's one of their shrines. And that's supposed to be the Almighty Eye. Not the Eye of Horus, that's a different eye. And so we got the Chinese dragons there, even though it's in Vietnam. So, when looking at all of these churches, do their architecture or association with certain other religions, many of you may think this is odd or weird or even strange. I don't think strange is a real concept. I think it's just what we use to describe what we're unaware of or what we may be afraid of. But to these people, Christianity, Judaism, or even Unitarian Universalism may seem odd. And heck, according to my other beliefs, I believe that God is every other deity and that He is science. So maybe I have no right to judge either. We could probably invite any of the members of any of these churches in with acceptance, and I think that would be the best way to go. And if you see someone that is associated with that religion or church, don't look down at them. Just think that that's their life choice, just like Unitarian Universalism is our life choice. Thank you.